It started with 3 light knocks on our door. Tap, tap, tap. We seldom had visitors to our small apartment, especially not at this hour. "Are we expecting somebody?" my wife asked. "No," I said as I got up from the living room couch. I walked a few feet to our front door and looked through the peephole. I saw a child with sad eyes standing in the cold. I swung our door open to greet the little girl. Her hair was a light blonde, lighter than my wife's shade of dirty blonde anyway. What struck me most were her eyes. There was no color in them. It wasn't that they were dark brown either. They were dilated pupils with no surrounding iris. 2 gaping black holes pushing at the edges of the whites of her eyes. My wife rushed to the door. "Call the police," she said. "And you come in here now." She patted the little girl's back and beckoned her into our apartment. My wife bombarded her with questions. "Are you lost? Where are your parents? Do you have their number? Why are you alone?" The little girl didn't actually vocally respond to any of the questions. She either shook her head or nodded as if it was a yes or no question. If not, she would have just stared at my wife, dumbfounded. "Let me get you some hot chocolate." My wife scrambled to our little kitchen and boiled some water over the stove. She was orphaned at a young age, so I knew she was trying her best to comfort the lost little girl. I got on the phone with a 911 operator and explained the situation. Despite the late hour, they immediately sent help. They arrived, asked us a few questions, and quickly escorted the girl out. She turned around and gave an innocent wave goodbye to my wife. "Thank you," she said, holding her hot chocolate in one hand. As I closed the door, I could see tears swelling up in my wife's eyes. There was a conflict in those tears. "What's wrong?" I asked. "I feel sorry for her," she said. "The foster system sucks." "Maybe they'll find her parents," I suggested. My wife shook her head, and that night I could feel our bed shake to her sobs. I turned over in the sheets and rubbed her back. She was on her side with her back towards me to hide the fact that she was crying, a habit I was familiar with. Things were better the next night as my wife and I cuddled on our living room couch. But the same 3 knocks from the night before came again. Tap, tap, tap. My wife rushed over to the door and opened it to see the same little girl. She bent down and wrapped her arms around her, lifting her off the hard cement and onto the soft carpet of our living room. The girl giggled as she was lifted through the air. I'll admit, I panicked in that moment. A lost child being found at some stranger's house 2 nights in a row? I reached for my phone, but my wife whipped her face to me and said, "That can wait till morning. Are you crazy?" The girl frowned at me with her smoldering black eyes. My wife gave me her classic death stare that read as, "What did you just say to me?" So I threw my hands up and said, "All right, I'll call first thing tomorrow." I grabbed some blankets and a pillow from our closet and set up a makeshift bed on our couch. My wife made a cup of hot chocolate for the girl. Then she pulled up a children's story on her phone and started reading to the girl on the couch. She was delighted and fell asleep quickly. My wife and I tiptoed to our room and slipped into bed as quietly as possible. She scrunched up close to me, and we embraced tightly. Her head rested in the crevice of my neck. "Do you think the police lost the girl?" I asked. She stayed still, speaking into my neck. She said that they took her home last night, but she got lost again. Wait, she talked? She hasn't said a word to me. She told me when I was reading. She started her rhythm of heavy breathing that I heard every night as she slept. Not minding the warmth of our combined body heat, I dozed off soon after. I awoke early that morning to an empty space in the bed. I stumbled into the kitchen in my usual way, eyes still half asleep, and poured myself some more water. My wife was lying on the ground in front of the couch. She slept on her side facing towards the girl, as if she had been watching her sleep. I stepped outside to make a phone call to the police. After finishing the call, I was surprised when I turned around and saw my wife standing at the open doorway. She held the little girl in her arms and sighed at me. "What?" I asked. She walked back into the house and I followed her in. I tried getting her attention, but both of them gave me the cold shoulder until the police showed up. They were frazzled this time, apologizing to us as they tried to beckon the girl to leave with them again. This time, the girl went kicking and screaming. My wife held her hand over her mouth and cried as she watched the police drag her out of our apartment. I got home from work that night and received one of the more dreadful greetings I've ever received from my wife. "Oh, you're back," she said. She wasn't sad like the night before. She was pissed. I tried opening conversations with her to no avail. She glued her eyes to the floor or to her phone the entire evening. When bedtime came around, she shooed me into our bedroom while she curled up on the couch. Like the previous night, I woke up early to an empty space where my wife normally slept. Only now, my wife was standing as a shadowy silhouette at the foot of our bed. I couldn't quite see her face in the darkness, but I felt the intensity from her eyes pin my shoulders to the bed. "Honey?" I said in a weak, groggy morning voice. "You let them take her," she said. "What?" I sat up sharply. "She's a lost child. She doesn't belong to us." "You let them take her." She lowered her hand from behind her back down to her side, and I saw our largest kitchen knife held tightly in her clenched fist. I jolted over the bed and flipped on the light switch. My wife reacted to the light and dropped the knife. Her eyes squinted, and she fluttered them as she does when she wakes up. "What happened?" she asked as she stood there. "Careful." I pointed to the knife on the ground. "Don't step on it." She picked it up with confusion, eyes now wide awake. "Why is this here?" "You were standing here, pointing the knife at me." She burst into tears and slammed her face into the bed. I crouched next to her and put my arms around her. "It's okay," I said, "but I think we need to see someone to figure this out." She nodded, still sobbing face first into our blanket. Next thing I did was call in sick to work, and I was determined to be there for her until we found a way to fix it. I made her some breakfast that morning, but she fell asleep on the couch before I could finish it. She was dead tired. It made me wonder how long she stood there at the foot of our bed, waiting for me to wake up the previous night. I put her breakfast on a plate and set it on the ground in front of the couch, in case she woke up. I needed to shower. I took a quick shower, expecting her to be up and about when I was done. I was surprised and relieved to see that she was still sleeping when I got out. I took the opportunity to do some research on therapists in my area. I called a few, and the soonest we could be seen by someone was 2 days. But one office mentioned that we could walk in at any time if it was an emergency. Seeing my wife lie peacefully asleep on the couch, I naively thought that it could wait. She woke up late in the afternoon. The breakfast plate that I made had long since gone cold. So I dumped it and started to make a light dinner of chicken and rice. It was hard to go wrong with chicken and rice. I knew it was one of my wife's favorite dishes, at least out of all the dishes I could make. "Morning, honey," I said. "Want some food?" She ignored me completely, and she robotically rose from the couch. She grabbed the car keys and was out of the door before I could say a word in protest. "The hell?" I said aloud. I turned the stove off and ran to my room to get some socks on. I threw shoes on right after and hobbled outside. I saw her back out of our parking spot and slam on the gas, propelling the car forward. Smoke rose from the tires as she sped out of our complex and toward the highway. I went back inside our apartment and tore my phone out of my pocket. I called her. I heard her phone vibrating in between the couch cushions. I growled to myself and went to pick it up. I ended the call from her phone, and her screen changed to a low-quality colored photo of a little girl. It was that girl, the one who kept showing up at our door. Except her eyes weren't black. They were green like my wife's. She stood alone, staring at me as if I was a stranger. It occurred to me that I have never actually seen a photo of my wife as a child. She always said that her parents never cared enough to take any photos before they abandoned her. I put her phone down and tried to think where she would have driven off to. But I lost my train of thought when I heard 3 faint knocks on my door. Tap, tap, tap. What the hell am I supposed to do now? Hi, my little Calaveras. Now, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. I truly appreciate you. Don't forget, if you haven't already, to subscribe. Also, like, comment, share, all the good things. And yeah, I thought it would be fun to do a black-eyed children story because this one broke the #1 rule, don't let them in. That is the simple rule for black-eyed children. Do not let them in. But I also want to note that they didn't say that they got the normal reaction where, they're creeped out, they feel like something's wrong, chills down their spine, instinct screaming at them, or the hair raising. None of that happened in this story, so who knows, maybe it's something different. But anyway, I am rambling. Just a reminder, all my socials are linked in the description down below if you want to follow me or get any updates, as well as my Gmail if you want to submit a story for me to potentially read here. But yeah, I'm gonna go. And remember, my little Calaveras, don't let anyone or anything steal your light. Check under your bed at night. And until next time, bye.